We've been together since 2015. And initially, I had planned for this to be a lifelong relationship. However, we faced some challenges along the way, and that's one of the reasons I never got around to proposing. Unfortunately, the ring fund I had set aside for that purpose will now be used for something else. I'm certain. Around 2019, I started to realize that our relationship might not turn out the way I'd envisioned. We had a lot of arguments, nothing physical, just disagreements, and both of us being upset, and our bed life suffered a lot after 2016 due to medical reasons. And it never really improved. In June of last year, we had a deep and meaningful conversation where she basically told me, not in these exact words, that I didn't fulfill her needs that I never had, and the idea of being close with me made her sick. It was incredibly upsetting at the time, and looking back, I should have ended our relationship then. However, we initially decided to try and work through our problems. And shortly after that, we found ourselves in a strict 4-month lockdown, so I didn't want to kick her out or anything like that. Around September, I discovered that she had been exchanging candid text messages with some guy from overseas. It was a complete breach of trust, but I chose to ignore it because there was no physical involvement. And even though we never openly discussed it, I assumed she knew that I was aware of it. I never directly confronted her about it, but eventually, we agreed to go to couples therapy. Yesterday, I found out that she had slept with another man in November of last year while she was on a short vacation out of town. It was some random guy she had met online, and I assumed they had been chatting for a few weeks at least. I didn't bother asking for the exact date, but it was either shortly before or shortly after our first couples therapy session. Today, when she went to work, I left a note on the table saying goodbye, packed a bag, and went to stay at my parents' place for a few days. Later in the evening after she came home, we had a long discussion over text messages for about an hour. I didn't want to talk about it aloud because I couldn't gather my thoughts quickly enough to speak. During our conversation, she took responsibility for everything, promised to change, and asked if I would come back. I appreciated her honesty, and I believe everything she said. This behavior is completely out of character for her. As she acknowledged, she has also dealt with mental illness and traumatic experiences during her childhood and young adulthood. However, I told her that this was a major deal breaker for me, and I wouldn't consider coming back even if we continue with couples therapy to address this issue. I did mention that I would be open to going back to our therapist to work through the process of the breakup. We had discussed this in one of our previous sessions, and I can see how it could be helpful. Our therapist has experience in dealing with these situations. Even if we were somehow able to move past this and she found a way to fix herself, it would always be a part of our past, and it's something I can never come to terms with while we are in a relationship. I'm not fully convinced that there has only been one other man involved. I asked her how many other people she has been close to during our relationship, and she said, only one. However, I think her definition of closeness might be strict, and I suspect she has been emotionally and physically cheating with several other men for at least the past 6 months and maybe even until now. She mentioned that this part of her life feels like it doesn't have any consequences, and although I know that's wrong, I can understand what she means. But regardless of the number, even one is too many. I feel really awful about how I found out about all of this, especially since it was based on a gut feeling. However, my gut was partially right, and that gives me some validation. It's hard for me to shake this feeling of shame for having discovered it, even though it's ultimately for the best that I know the truth and that we separate. I'll probably try to reschedule my appointment with my own therapist to get some guidance on how to move forward from here. I'm not sure how she's going to move on from this, but I'm doing my best to focus on myself. I'm still figuring out what I'll do and how I'll be because so much of my identity and daily life revolved around what we had together. I picked up my guitar for the first time in months, but I couldn't really play much. I haven't been playing as often because I felt embarrassed doing it around her, although it's not her fault. She was always supportive of my creative pursuits. I have a few friends, but I'm generally reserved and tend to feel lonely easily. I might consider sharing a house with someone because I'm not sure if living alone is a good idea me right now. I did mention that I hope we can be friends someday, and I genuinely mean it. Despite the infidelity and our other issues, she's a great person, and we had a strong connection. But deep down, I don't think it's very likely to happen. At the very least, if one of us starts dating someone new, unless they're extremely understanding, I don't think maintaining a friendship would work. I've decided that I won't be too open with other people about the details of our breakup. There's no need for that. However, it's something I would disclose to a future partner, and I can understand why it might be awkward for them to know that their partner is friends with an ex who cheated. I'll deal with that situation when it comes. But it's likely that she'll move to another city, and we won't have many opportunities to see each other again anyway. So that's my story. There were moments this morning when I considered just letting it go and trying to forget about everything. But I'm glad that the part of me that stood firm won, because truthfully, there was no future for us with this knowledge hanging over us. It would always bother me. I don't know what the future holds, and I'm genuinely scared because I've had struggles with alcohol and smoking in the past. And my partner was a big help in keeping those habits in check. I quit smoking as a condition of our relationship, which I'm grateful for, although I might have an occasional sneaky cigarette at the pub. Now I don't have that support anymore, and that worries me. I've made a short list of things to keep myself occupied for the next 4 weeks, and I've decided not to buy any alcohol for now. As for smoking, I'll only do it if I go out and someone offers me a cigarette, which doesn't happen often, so it's manageable. If any of you have gone through a breakup involving infidelity and have any advice on how to get through the first few weeks, months, I would really appreciate it. If you've read this far, thank you so much for taking the time. I hope you're doing well on your own journey too. If you are, feel free to leave a comment and let me know that it gets better, because I could use some reassurance. Second story. Hey, I'm a first-time poster, so please bear with me. In 2020, during the pandemic, I, a 28-year-old guy, met my dream girl, a 72-year-old woman, completely by chance. It couldn't have gone better. We talked all the time, got along perfectly, and spent a few amazing weeks together. It was everything I could have hoped for. It had been a while since I had been involved with someone, so I quickly became emotionally invested in her, and she felt the same way about me. As we grew closer, we started having deeper conversations, and I found out she actually had a boyfriend when we first started talking. However, she ended that relationship because things had fizzled out between them. I should have seen that as a sign. Anyway, after a few weeks, toward the end of summer, I had to go back to university to finish my degree, and she did too. The problem was we were more than 6 hours away from each other. We decided to stay in regular communication and talk every day to see how things would go. We made an effort to talk as much as possible, despite the distance, and we grew even closer. I made the trip to see her once, and we had the most amazing weekend together. It was perfect. But there's something from my past that I felt I should disclose to her if we were getting close. I wanted to be honest and upfront about it. I had a one-time incident on a night out that led to a criminal record, and I'm not proud of it. It was a low point in my life, and I realized I needed to turn things around. To make a long story short, I went from a dead-end situation to studying online, gaining access to university, and now I'm halfway through my master's. I've made some progress. Anyway, that's a story for another time. Basically, the parents of the girl I was seeing didn't approve of my past, even though I was about to graduate and move forward in life. After that, things started to become distant between us. We still talked every day. And she convinced me that she would talk to her parents about it when she went back to Canada for Christmas. She's Canadian. Little did I know that was just a bunch of lies. Eventually, in January 2021, I decided to end things because chasing after a girl for that long was taking a toll on my mental health. In my own words, at the time, I'm only a fraction of the guy the first used to be when we first met. So we went our separate ways. Fast forward to April 2021. I receive a message from her asking how I'm doing and saying she missed me. And, being the sentimental guy that I am, I went along with it. It turned out she had moved back to Canada in January to finish her master's degree, so she was still there at that point. We spent the whole summer chatting, having video calls every day, exchanging texts and saying sweet things to each other. She was reeling me back in successfully and even suggested multiple times that she would move back to the UK for me so we could start a real relationship naturally. I was hooked and thought things were finally looking up. I was really excited. There were some strange moments during the summer, but I attributed it to her being stressed about her family's disapproval of her moving back to the UK. She had a lot on her plate, and I feel foolish for ignoring my gut instincts about the whole situation. She came back in July, and from that month until November, everything was absolutely perfect. We were amazing together, and it worked really well. But then on November 6, 2021, D-Day happened. I had forgotten my laptop for my university work, so she let me use hers while she was at work. I stumbled upon some things that raised suspicions, to say the least. I saw emails with her ex's name, pictures from old vacations, and folders with pictures right there on the laptop screen. I did some investigating and found restaurant reservations from when we first started talking. Some emails related to academic journals. Turns out they were both studying the same course and living in the same city. I asked her about it, and she claimed they were just doing a placement together, nothing more. But as I kept pressing, more and more came out. They went out for dinner a few times. Then digging deeper, I found out she went to his place for a couple of months to watch sports with him and his friends. And then, even more shocking, she admitted that he would walk her home from the placement, and she would invite him inside. They slept together multiple times while she was talking to me. All of this information came out gradually over the course of a month and a bit. More information came to light as well. She claimed she stayed at a cottage with her sister and mom when she went back home for a weekend. But in reality, she was with him and they slept together twice. 2 weeks before she saw me again, she met up with him in the presence of her family. They had closeness in the back of his car. In her own words, it was to make sure she didn't still have feelings for him before seeing me again. To be honest, ever since that day, my mind has been a mess. I've been trying to cope with it because she's convinced she made a huge mistake and believes I would be the best thing for her in every possible way. She keeps saying all these things to me, her excuse for cheating. She didn't have her family's approval of our relationship and thought I was too good for her. She has low self-esteem, so she tends to self-destruct. Here's the thing though. She has a history of cheating on all her previous boyfriends. She's been a chronic cheater for many years. She wants us to get back together and claims to be madly in love with me. Now she's in deep depression because of what she's done to me. Her friend says she's never seen her like this over a guy before. Her parents and sister actually liked me when they met me. So they're extremely disappointed in her for betraying me. They didn't know the extent of our relationship. The verse, she kept it hidden. Everyone is utterly disgusted by her actions and how she played me for over a year. What should I do in this situation? Honestly, I don't think I can ever fully trust her again. Rebuilding that trust would require years of hard work. And right now, we don't live close to each other. Part of me thinks I should consider reconciling because maybe she just made some stupid choices. I don't really believe in pure mistakes. And perhaps beneath all the messiness, she's actually a good person. On the other hand, another part of me feels like I should cut my losses. See it as a learning experience and move on. I'm at a crucial point in my life where things are going great academically and personally. I'm on track to graduate from my master's program and a PhD might be in my future. Something I never thought I would pursue. The only thing that gives me pause is my desire for a family, a wife, and kids in the future. I wonder if walking away means missing an opportunity to help someone grow and potentially benefit from it myself. Maybe I'm just being crazy. Third story, 3 weeks ago, my partner, 31 meters of 7 years and I, 30F, who had just gotten engaged, were in the process of choosing our wedding venue. We had a potential date set September 2, 22 and wanted to visit the venue before finalizing our decision. Afterwards, we grabbed lunch and reminisced about how we fell in love 7 years ago in the quaint beach town where we planned to have our wedding. That night, he expressed his excitement about becoming my husband. Little did I know the night before he had been close with his married coworker in the back of his truck. During the following week, he took time off work. I initially thought it was due to wedding jitters, but he was actually corresponding with the wedding planner regarding deposits for the venue. He even approved one of my wedding dress ideas. Our emotional connection and everything else seemed completely normal. Then on Friday, 1 week after he cheated on me, I discovered him crying in our bathroom in the middle of the night. That's when he dropped the bombshell. I was utterly stunned, shocked, and taken aback. We had been together for 7 years, living together for 5, and even shared 2 dogs. I demanded that he tell me everything, and he spilled all the details. They were deeply in love. They believed they were meant to be together, or so he thought. He claimed to have known her for only 3 months, and they had no interaction outside of work, but their chemistry was off the charts. She had been married to her husband for 10 years and got married officially last summer. However, according to him, her husband was a terrible person who didn't deserve her and neglected her. Supposedly, their plan was for him to leave me and wait for her to get a divorce so they could be together. I asked him if she had already started the process of separation. He wasn't sure, but he claimed that she had informed her husband about their relationship, and he was okay with it. The whole situation was so absurd that I couldn't help but laugh and wish him luck. It's clear to me that this won't end well. At least the sheer ridiculousness of this mess provides some entertainment and distracts me from the fact that my life is falling apart. My world came crashing down 5 weeks ago on what I call D-Day. My ex-fiancé, 31 AM, abruptly left me after 7 years to ride off into the sunset with his married coworker. He willingly chose to be with her and our communication has been mostly non-existent. Tonight, we had a scheduled call to discuss the next steps. I informed him that I had packed his belongings and asked if a Saturday move-out day would work for him. Initially, he seemed cooperative, but things took a turn when I told him he couldn't enter the house. He attempted to intimidate me by claiming he had residency rights and that I couldn't legally keep him out of his own home even though there was no lease. I stood my ground and told him he could take legal action if he wished. Then the insults started pouring in. Why do you have to be so difficult? I've always despised this side of you. Clearly, you're not interested in an amicable resolution. You're crazy. You're unreasonable. I hope I never have to hear from you again. Before we could finalize any plans, he hung up the phone, abruptly ending the conversation. I have a few reasons why I don't want him inside the house, but the main one is because of my dogs. They finally started to calm down, and I don't want his presence to trigger their anxiety again. During our call, he claimed to love the dogs, although I doubt it since he's walking away from them, but he didn't give me a chance to explain my reasoning. Oh, well, we've been living together for 5 years, so there's a lot of stuff to pack. I've spent the past 2 weeks carefully packing everything because I still believe in being decent. There are also valuable items from his grandparents that I've packed with care and intend to return to their rightful place. I checked the weather forecast and it looks like it won't rain on Saturday, so my brother will help me move everything outside for him. I don't plan on being here when he comes to collect his things. He's still hoping things will work out with the other person, AP. I told him it's despicable to cheat. But it's even worse to pursue a married woman. He insists he has to follow his heart, although he conveniently claims he never loved me and I was just convenient. He got upset when he found out I told people the truth about what happened instead of just saying we broke up. He also told me it's none of my business to inform AP's husband. I'm sad, but mostly I'm disgusted. It's surreal to see someone I once held in high regard stoop so low. Now that I'm familiar with the cheater's playbook, his words and actions have become predictable. He's made his life unnecessarily difficult and he knows it. Well, that's quite a surprise to hear. I never intended to propose to you. It was never going to happen, but we went together to choose a ring. You bought it. We even traveled to Florida to spend Christmas and New Year's with your family planning for New Year's Eve engagement on the beach. I even got an outfit for the occasion. Then when it rained that day, we decided to postpone the proposal until we were back home. We started planning the wedding for the summer of 2022. You picked the venue and we drove 2 hours to visit it together. Afterwards, you bought champagne to celebrate and you emailed the wedding planner to discuss the deposit schedule for the September 2nd date we had talked about. We even picked our first dance song and made a guest list. For someone who claimed they never intended to propose, you sure did a lot of wedding planning. This brings me to wonder, what are the rules these days? If you have a ring and a set wedding date, but he never got down on one knee, does it still count? What about couples who skip the tradition of an engagement ring altogether? And if you had a fancy proposal and set a wedding date but didn't make a deposit, does that count? What if you're in the 7-year relationship, but find yourself attracted to a married coworker? Is it acceptable to sleep with her? And what if she's unhappy in her marriage? Does the integrity of her wedding vows depend solely on her current level of satisfaction, and are either of you obligated to consider the feelings of your partners? I suppose the obvious solution would be to avoid getting involved with someone who creates such unclear situations. But for those of us unfortunate enough to find ourselves in these circumstances, I ask you, what are the rules? And who gets to keep the ring if he left his belongings on your nightstand 6 weeks ago, when he decided to be with his supposed true love? Should you keep them? And what if this other woman, AP, suddenly decides to work on her marriage instead of meeting your ex at his Airbnb? Does that change the situation? How about if he avoids your calls and texts for 3 weeks regarding moving out? And what if he finally gets an apartment but can only afford it for a few months? Moreover, what if he hangs up on you before you can even discuss how to divide your belongings after living together for 5 years? What exactly should the specifics of the situation be, or is he simply gaslighting B? It's been a full month since my ex-fiancé moved out. I've completely cut off contact, blocked his number and email, and unfollowed him and his family on social media. Recently, during a St. Patrick's Day bar crawl, someone shared with me that he's not doing well. Although I didn't ask for details, I can make a pretty good guess. Excessive drinking, maybe even showing up to work drunk the next day. He managed to get away with it twice in 2021, despite being a junior financial planner at a small firm, vaping nicotine, and spending time with his obsessed high school friends. Most, if not all, of our mutual friends have distanced themselves from him. I also found out that one of our friends took it upon himself to call my ex and inform him that they were no longer friends, warning him to stay away from our small town. Apparently, it escalated into a heated argument between the two of them. Additionally, my ex had asked a few of these mutual friends for help with his move, but they all declined. Back then, I felt a sense of relief when I saw what seemed like justice. It confirmed my belief that he had indeed made a huge mistake. I also felt a tinge of sadness in my heart. But now I'm furious. How dare he not be happy after everything he's done? He shattered our life together to chase after his supposed one true love. He trampled on our little family because suddenly we weren't enough for him. He played a key role in destroying App's family too. So much devastation has been caused in the name of his happiness. He better be damn happy. As for me, I'm doing okay-ish. The other morning, I even caught myself feeling a brief moment of happiness. I'm taking care of myself, eating well, and working out. I upgraded my car, and I started volunteering at an animal shelter 3 days a week, which has been incredible. I also took up a part-time job. The dogs are doing well, and one of them is going to start an introductory agility class next month. Life moves on. I still cry at night. I still shed tears in the car. It greatly frustrates me how unnecessary all of this has been. Especially now that I know how unwell he is. I'm a logical person, and the senselessness of it all is agonizing. It didn't have to be this way.